today, Lesson 11. We're now a quarter of the way through the Play It Today course, so this is the ideal time to stop for a moment and look back at some of the key points from earlier lessons. It's not a test, just a reminder of what we've covered so far, and a handy way of letting you see the progress you've made since Lesson 1. Turn to the first page of your Lesson 11 booklet, page 121. Here and at the top of the following page, you'll find reminders of some of the theory and technique that you met in the first 3 lessons. What we'd like you to do now is turn off the tape and work your way through these 2 sections, playing the exercises we're asked and answering the questions if you can. When you've finished, start the tape again and we'll give you the answers. Here come the answers. For the question on page 121, a bar is the space between 2 bar lines. It always contains the exact number of beats shown by the time signature, the fraction written at the start of the music. At the top of page 122, the time values of the notes are, in order, 2 beats, a minim, 1 beat, a crotchet, 3 beats, a dotted minim, and 4 beats, a semibreve. The rests are worth 1 beat, a crotchet rest, 4 beats, a semibreve rest, 2 beats, a minim rest, and 3 beats, a dotted minim rest. Now let's do the same thing with the next section in your booklet, covering lessons 4 and 5. Read through the rest of page 122 and the whole of page 123, following the instructions given. Then, when you've finished, restart the tape and we'll give the answers to the questions. So, to answer the question, how many quavers equal the various notes on page 122? 4 quavers equal a minim, 2 equal a crotchet, 6 equal a dotted minim, and 8 equal a semibreve. As for the chords, the C major chord is made up of the notes C, E, and G. The F major chord is F, A, and C. The G7 chord can be either B, F, and G, or D, F, and G. And the A minor chord is formed by C, E, and A, or, in another order, E, A, and C. We will, by the way, be going into the whole business of which order the notes in a chord come in a bit later on. So for the moment, if you've written the right 3 notes for each chord, consider yourself correct, whatever the order. Some of you will have found these questions and answers very easy. But even if you find them difficult, don't worry. You're making progress just the same, and it's only a matter of time before you succeed. Simply make sure you understand each new step in the course as it comes up. And remember, there are no prizes for rushing on ahead. Now let's get on with the course. In Lesson 3, you learnt how to play repeated notes. That is, play the same note again and again by using your wrist to lift your finger and strike the key. If you can't remember, have a look back to page 27 of your Lesson 3 booklet and listen to the part of the tape that goes with it. Back in Lesson 3, the object of the exercise was to make each note last as long as you could by lifting your finger at the last possible moment and then striking the key again quickly so that the break was hardly noticeable. But sometimes in music, you need to create a quite different sort of effect, in which the notes are short and clearly separated from one another. This is called playing staccato. Any notes can be played staccato, as you'll see later, but for the moment we're going to concentrate on staccato repeated notes. To hear what's meant by playing staccato, have a listen to the 2 examples shown at the top of page 124. Example A is played in the normal way, making the notes last as long as possible and leaving the shortest possible gap between them. In example B, as you can see in the booklet, all the notes have dots below them. This tells us to play them staccato. Listen to the result. How do you get this effect? The answer is that you use your wrist in much the same way as before, but this time you raise it almost the moment your finger strikes the key, so that the finger virtually bounces off the keyboard, as if it were operating a typewriter. The next 4 exercises will help you practice this technique. If you listen to each one first on the tape, and then try to imitate the sound, you shouldn't have too much trouble getting the hang of it. But as you're playing, remember that although your wrist should remain relaxed and supple, your finger should be quite firm. Don't let it move independently of the rest of the hand. In the written music, you'll notice that the staccato dots can appear either above or below the notes, depending on which way the notes' tails are facing. There's no real danger of confusing staccato notes with dotted notes, but if you're worried that you might, check back now to page 87 of your Lesson 8 booklet, where the dotted notes are set out for you. Here's the first of the 4 exercises. Exercise 101 for the right hand. And now, exercise 102 for the left hand. Exercise 103 is for the right hand again. And finally, exercise 104 for the left hand. So far, you've been playing the repeated notes with the same finger. But in the next group of exercises, we'll ask you to keep changing fingers, so that you never play with the same finger twice in a row. The technique for this is quite different. You no longer lift your wrist to take your finger off the key. Instead, you raise the finger itself, at the same time moving your wrist very slightly from right to left or left to right, until the next finger you want is positioned over the note. All this happens very quickly, of course, so it's probably best not to get too involved in the mechanical details of how you play the notes, as long as you can do so comfortably and successfully. But at all costs, don't try to reach sideways with one finger over another to reach the key you want, or you'll end up tying yourself in knots. And remember, too, to keep the staccato effect going by letting your fingers bounce back off the keyboard the moment they strike the keys. The finger-changing technique is quite a tricky one to master, and you may have some difficulty at first. Eventually, though, it will come to you. And when it does, you'll find it allows you to play repeated staccato notes faster and more accurately. Exercise 105 is designed to be played first with the second finger and thumb, then with the third and second fingers, and finally with the fourth and third. Play it with both hands separately, starting with the right. Exercise 106 is for the right hand only. Start by using your second finger and thumb, then play it again with your third and second fingers. Exercise 107 is similar, but for the left hand. Now try exercise 108, first with the right hand, then with the left. Here's exercise 109 for the right hand. And exercise 110 for the left hand. The last two exercises in this section, 111 and 112, combine staccato notes with phrase marks, which you met in Lesson 3. The joined-up legato sound that you get by obeying the phrase marks is in a sense the opposite of playing staccato, where each note is clearly separate from the ones next to it. In exercise 111, a phrase mark links the third C with the F following it, which means that you hold down the C almost until the F is played, so that the two notes run smoothly into one another. Listen carefully and you can hear how this sounds. Finally, here's exercise 112 for the left hand. There's just one new chord for this lesson, E major, made up of the root note E, G sharp and B. Here it is with the right hand. And the left. Exercise 113 contains a longer sequence of chords than you've met up to now. As usual, see if you can play it with both hands. The fingering below the notes is for the left hand, the fingering above for the right. The first rhythmic variation is written out in full for you this time. Watch out for the jump from G sharp down to middle C between bars 2 and 3. And now, the start of variation number 2. Make sure you complete the second variation for the entire sequence of chords. And as usual, after you've practiced everything with your right hand, play through it again with your left. Now let's move on to our first practice piece, a pretty little French-style tune called Francoise. The music, which is in 3/4 time, includes plenty of staccato and phrased notes, like the ones you've just been practicing, plus the E major chord in arpeggio form. As before, the sequence of chords is shown below the stave. There are 2 new notes in the piece. The A on the first ledger line above the stave in the treble clef, and the B in the space above that ledger line. If you have any trouble finding them on the keyboard, just think for a moment. They're exactly an octave above the A and B notes you already know. You'll need to keep a careful eye on the accidentals in the left-hand part, and watch out for the fingering as well. In fact, you might find it easier to practice the 2 hands separately before you try putting them together. Finally, a word about the repeat. When you get to the repeat sign at the end of the second sheet of music, you can see written the Italian words da capo al fine. This means you go back to the beginning of the piece, da capo, and repeat it until you come to the word fine again. There the music ends. So, now here's Francoise played through, complete with accompaniment. And here's the same piece, this time without the keyboard part. Our second practice piece is Greensleeves, a famous English folk tune that dates back to the 16th century. We've arranged it for solo piano, so you won't hear any accompaniment on the tape. We'll simply play it through for you, so that you can compare your performance. The Italian words molto legato, at the start of Greensleeves, mean that it's to be played in a very smooth, melodic style. Legato, which you've met before, means joined-up sounds. And molto simply means very. And in case you're wondering why instructions like these are written in Italian, not English, it's because Italian is accepted throughout the world as the language for written music. Most of the words crop up time and time again, so you shouldn't find it hard to learn them. Greensleeves has an unusual and interesting rhythm, which you'll have to pick up from the very start. Count yourself in from the beginning of the first bar, so that you play your first note on the count of 3, and your second on the count of 1 in the second bar. In the third bar comes the first of a series of dotted crotchets, and here you might find it helpful to count in half beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and, until you're sure you've caught the rhythm. As with Francoise, watch the fingering carefully, and practice each hand separately before you try to combine them. At times you'll find the right hand plays repeated notes while changing fingers, but these are definitely not to be played staccato. Concentrate on making each note last as long as you can, keeping the breaks between notes as short as possible. Here's Greensleeves played through. We'll end this lesson with one last exercise. Exercise 114 on page 132 of your booklet. This is in the key of G major, so all the Fs in the piece are sharp. And once again, remember to watch the fingering carefully.